The Falcons coaching cycle is revving up. Should a Raheem Morris reunion be in the works? And what do we make of all this Bill Belichick buzz?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And of course, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So, if you guys don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman. And, I've been covering the Falcons for far too long, formerly at FalcFans.com. I remember the first coaching cycle. RIP. Thank you, Jarvis. Yes. The first coaching cycle I ever covered on that website many, many years ago was a certain person. I think his name was like Robert Petrino or something like that. The Falcons hired or something like that. So I go way back, guys.
Speaking of that, can I add this? So,
okay.
I was at the press conference where Rich McKay, Arthur Blank were, talking and spewing political stuff at me, and I was trying to weed through all that stuff, So when I finally cleared my eyes of all the stuff they were spewing at me, I realized that there were at least 3 references to a Mr. Robert Petrino. They wouldn't even mention his name. And they were jokes like, we made a mistake type situation. So it was a beautiful thing to see. So I'm glad you brought up Robert Petrino, because that was absolutely hilarious sitting there watching them basically admit that, that was the worst hire we've ever made.
That's our bad. That was
yes, basically that's what it was. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah. So we all,
we all make mistakes.
Wherever you fall on this Falcons regime or whatever, we all agree on this one thing. That was a mistake. So appreciate each and every one of you guys that is an everydayer. Of course, if you want to become an everydayer in this wonderful calendar year of 2024, all you got to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to the podcast. And if you're listening or watching and you're like, who is this person that is talking about Robert Petrino that is not Aaron Freeman, your very humble host? That is, of course, Jarvis Davis. And we say thank you for tuning in to one of these end of the week episodes for the first time in like 6 months, because Jarvis has been a regular on this show weekly and will continue to be so throughout the off season. I'm sure you will see plenty of Jarvis later this month when
Therapy Thursdays, man. Yeah. That's what we're gonna call it. Yeah.
Certainly when he and I descend on the city of Mobile to do some Senior Bowl stuff. But of course, Jarvis, you can find him on Locked On Sports Atlanta. You can find him on NFL Kickoff Live. And you can check out Jarvis tomorrow or Friday, getting you guys set for the wild card weekend. Fun day of action. You guys can actually enjoy football once in a while, watching good teams play on Sunday rather than the Atlanta Falcons. But what we're here to talk about with Jarvis is not this upcoming weekend of games. We're talking about the Falcons finally revving up their coaching hiring cycle, right? And as of this recording, and maybe by the time this episode drops and you're listening to this, there's more names added to the list, but so far we have 8 requests put in for interviews for the Falcons head coaching vacancy. We have Brian Callahan, the Bengals offensive coordinator; Ejiro Evero, the Panthers defensive coordinator; Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator; Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator; Raheem Morris, the Rams defensive coordinator; Bobby Slowik, the Texans offensive coordinator; Anthony Weaver, the Ravens D-line coach and assistant head coach; and Steve Wilks, the 49ers defensive coordinator. And Jarvis, there's been a lot of people in these last couple of days since the dismissal of Arthur Smith expressing concerns about the Falcons' quote-unquote slow process, at least until today. And I feel like, Jarvis, you might have been among one of those people questioning a little bit of the process. So I'm curious, now that the dominoes are starting to fall, now that you're starting to hear that engine rev up, right? What are your thoughts on the Falcons process so far? And of these 8 guys that the Falcons seemingly are most interested in, these are 8 of the probably 10 most prominent potential names on the watch list. we'll talk about one other name later in the episode. But what are your thoughts on the process so far, and sort of who jumps out in this list for you so far?
To be honest with you, I find it kind of interesting that, all of these requests for interviews came out as soon as we found out that that person we'll talk about later on was not going to no longer be the head coach of his former team in New England Patriots. And for me, this whole process is just weird because I'm still trying to wrap my head around the general manager not being at the press conference where you're talking about him having input, but he's not at the press conference where you're talking about what you want in the head coach or the event that you're going to be talking about pursuing the head coach. He's not there. And the one thing that I grasped from that, after listening to them live and hear them kind of speak on a certain thing, the one thing that I grasped from it, that I took away from it, that it made me feel like they are probably going to reduce his role or reduce his say-so. Because if you have Rich McKay up here sticking his chest out saying, yeah, my input matters, hashtag McKay input matters when it comes to day-to-day decisions, but it doesn't necessarily, trump, decisions that the general manager and the whoever head coach comes in here, it doesn't trump them, but his input matters. That says a lot. That just says to me that Terry Fontenot is going to be along for the ride, which is kind of unfortunate because, to be honest with you, he hasn't done a terrible job since he's been here. So I really feel like that this process, once I get past us finding basically Rich McKay, Arthur Blank sitting up at that doggone podium and saying in so many words that Terry Fontenot role depends on who we bring in, is defined depending on who we bring in as head coach. That says a lot to me about how this process is probably going to play out. And I think that it's truly unfortunate because, I like Terry. I met him before, talked to him and everything like that. And it's just weird, man. And it seems like the Falcons are the only organization that does this type of stuff. I mean, I'm sure that you can go to Carolina and they'll probably say the same doggone thing. It'd probably be 1,000 times worse, but it's just a lot of the teams aren't doing this. And it just is, if you have to sit up there and explain the organizational structure multiple times, yeah, seemingly after every time after some coach gets fired, it's a problem. I think it's an issue, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. But now that we are getting the requests starting to come out, and I start to see the names, it's so interesting how people can kind of just catch a wave, right? Because and the one name that really kind of stands out to me, I don't know if it's necessarily a positive thing, is Bobby Slowik, right? His first year calling plays, our offensive coordinator. He's from the Kyle Shanahan tree, worked with DeMeco Ryans with San Francisco and everything like that. And when you think about the suddenness of him being a quote unquote hot candidate, I'm like, dude, the man has CJ Stroud, who a lot of people were saying was the best quarterback in the draft. I wasn't necessarily saying that. I was on the Bryce Young train. I'll openly admit to that. But I knew the guy has talent. He has talent. And that's what it's all about in the NFL. When you have talent, it's about the X's and O's really don't matter. It's all about the Jimmys and Joes, man. So I found Bobby Slowik, and a lot of people seem to like him. But, I can't sit up here and say, oh, man, if they hire him, oh, boy, it's on and popping. But he ain't got CJ Stroud, y'all. Just remember that.
That's true.
They gotta go find one.
Yeah, that's right.
Good luck.
I was when we were prepping for that Texans game earlier this season, I was impressed with the play calling that he did in the first month of the season with CJ Stroud, right? That was the kind of the thing that stood out to me. I was like, I know I was the same way. Bryce Young was 1, CJ Stroud was 2 for me. I knew CJ Stroud was a talented quarterback, and I thought, hey, Bobby Slowik's doing a good job getting this guy introduced to the NFL, and he continued that and built off of that. I think with Slowik is interesting because it's just like, I think and again, it's not to say that he is undeserving of this, because I think we had I don't know if it was you and me, Jarvis, that had a conversation about this, but I remember having a conversation with somebody about Kevin O'Connell And right, it was like everybody was just riding the Sean McVay wave.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, Kevin O'Connell, like this Kevin O'Connell.
You had a
guy,
cup
like,
of coffee with Sean McVay, you're gonna get a job.
Yeah, you know, and so, but I've really been impressed with what Kevin O'Connell has done in Minnesota. So that has looked in hindsight very good. And I think Slowik is just catching that Shanahan McVay wave. Like those are the hot names. You see what Mike McDaniel's done. I think Sean McVay is very deserving of getting Coach of the Year this year. He did an outstanding job with the Rams. We all know that Shanahan and the 49ers are favorites to be the Super Bowl. Matt LaFleur, you know, it was up and then it was down and then they got back up and they're back in the playoff picture. So that sort of Shanahan McVay tree has been very, very good throughout the NFL at the high levels. There's been a couple of guys that have tried to ride that wave and haven't quite hit. But,
Sorry,
you know, but it is one of those things where, like, I understand why people are interested in Slow. Is he the next guy? Is he the next Mike McDaniel? Is he the next Matt LaFleur? All that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes out of this process and if someone looks to him for being the future. But that gets us to what I want to talk about with you next, Jarvis, because I know you and I kind of share an affinity for someone from the Falcons past that's part of this list, and that's Raheem Morris. And I do want to at least pick your brain on that and whether you think that returning to Raheem Morris makes sense. And we'll get into that, guys, as we continue this episode. Now, guys, I want to tell you about Game Time, the fast and easy way to buy tickets to all the sports, comedy, music, and theater near you. They have killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from the seat, their best price guarantee. They're taking the guesswork out of buying tickets. If you want to get that view from your seat before you buy, you will know exactly what you expect before you ride. They're all in prices, mean that you're not going to get hit with hidden fees. You can buy tickets right up to the start of the event and sometimes even after it has started. And if you know you're running on that Atlanta traffic, you might need that getting behind in that. And their Game Time guarantee means you're going to get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, they'll credit you 110% the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time by downloading Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your purchase, your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, Jarvis, we talked a little bit about Bobby Slowik. We talked a little bit about the Falcons process. I want to talk with you about Raheem Morris. But before we have that conversation, do want to plug the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel, the first of its kind here on YouTube, presented to you by Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You'll get the biggest stories across sports, across the nation, across the world, all the biggest stories. But if you're looking for more of a local flair here in the state of Georgia, in the city of Atlanta, you can check out Locked On Sports Atlanta's 24/7 streaming channel as well here on YouTube. But Jarvis, let's explore some of these guys that have so thus far made the cut. And I know earlier this week on Locked On Sports Atlanta, we both expressed our affinity for Raheem Morris. And basically my take for those of you that did not listen to the episode is, you know, and it's been my take, you know, throughout this process is like, we don't really know much about these, especially these first-time head coaches. We're like, we see what they do as coordinators. We see them have a lot of success, but you're anybody's guess on whether or not these guys can be capable head coaches. Raheem Morris is much more of a known thing. And obviously he didn't have a ton of success in Tampa Bay, right? But he was one of, I think, the only coaches in like a 15-year span that had a winning season in Tampa Bay with Josh Freeman there when he was very young. He was like super young. I don't know. He was like 12 when he was coach of the Bucs.
Easily 12 years old. Yep.
Yeah. And then obviously he was the interim coach here in Atlanta after the dismissal of Dan Quinn. You know, and I think they went like 4-7, but you know, I think they won 3 out of their first 4 games. And you know, there was a moment there where people were like, oh, Raheem Morris is going to get this team to the playoffs and he's going to be the long-term head coach. But with Raheem Morris, you know, I feel like a lot of retread coaches, you're going to get a better coach the next time he's a head coach. You know what you're getting. We know that he's great with young players. We know he communicates well. We know he knows both sides of the ball. He's coached on offense. He's coached on defense. He's had a lot of success with the Rams the last couple of years as their defensive coordinator, expanding his coaching, integrating some of that Vic Fangio, Brandon Staley style defense along with the Dan Quinn. So you're getting this kind of blend, and he's checking a lot of the boxes for me, Jarvis. But I'm curious for you, why are you making the case potentially for a potential reunion with Raheem Morris here in Atlanta?
I'll never forget one day after practice when I was up there at Flowery Branch and Raheem Morris was still on the staff, and just seeing how he just communicates with the players, right? Because and it was, I think it was a guy who was a backup linebacker, special teams guy. And he was just kind of showing him some things, and the guy was just, you could see the guy just like, oh, okay, yeah, got you, coach. I understand like that. For me, I value that a lot. That sticks out to me because being able to communicate to any level of player, whether it be QB1 or that undrafted free agent, that you like a guy like Nate Landman or something like that, for people who kind of, so you can understand like where I'm coming from. Because there's tiers to this thing in NFL. As much people don't want to talk about it. Like certain guys get treated differently. Certain guys have a little bit more cachet when they come into the locker room, or how they get treated and what matters, how they feel matters. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I just feel like Raheem has a very good way of how to talk to players, and he can meet people wherever they are. Like whether you a cat that's from the west side of Atlanta, or you doggone out there, or you grew up in Montana somewhere. I feel like Raheem Morris can connect with any of those guys, and how you can connect is that those guys know that he's going to teach them. He's a teacher. And like you said, with experience on both sides of the football, you can speak everybody's language. And then to be able to do that and be able to convey your message to each and every player on your roster, I really feel like that is something that the Falcons need right now. Because like Arthur Smith, don't get me wrong, offensive coordinators are the ish, right? But I feel like those guys can get in their own silos and saying, hey, I'm all into about the numbers and the plays and all that stuff, and basically got to jump outside of themselves when they become head coaches. And what I feel like Arthur Smith was able to do. Now, don't get me wrong, he was able to have hire a pretty solid staff. So he was able to kind of work his way through it. But I think ultimately what ends up happening is, like, you jumping outside of yourself a lot, that's when those mistakes come in. And I feel like that's what ultimately was the demise of Arthur Smith. But I just feel like Raheem Morris is the type of guy that he'll be able to get past that. And he's failed before. I don't mind giving people second chances. Bill Belichick was fired from Cleveland. He's fired from the Cleveland Browns. So, dang, I try to get through the whole episode before we mention his name, man. My bad. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. I know we're going to get there. But, yeah, it's just, I think it means something if they were able to, bring a guy back like Raheem Morris. And I'm glad that they requested to interview him.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious, Jarvis, we got 8 names. Were there any names that you were, and obviously it's not as if like, oh, well, this is it. There may put in other requests, but were there maybe some other names that you were expecting the Falcons to be interested, or you want to see the Falcons maybe express some interest that may be on your short list? Someone like maybe an Eric Bieniemy, Washington's offensive coordinator. Joe Brady, I know, has been getting a lot of buzz since taking over with the Buffalo Bills play calling. Mike McDonald is kind of the hot name, produced the top defense in the NFL, the Ravens defensive coordinator. Brian Flores really sort of reboosted his stock. I think everybody went like Minnesota. We all saw that defense last year, and to see what that defense was able to do this year under Brian Flores, I think certainly helps them. But, any of those names, or were there maybe somebody else that you were thinking, I wonder if the Falcons going to show interest in that guy?
Jim Harbaugh? Like,
yeah.
Like he came in your house and beat you, back in 2012, and went on to go to the Super Bowl to play against his brother. Like, I mean, that seems like it makes too much sense for them at least to have a conversation. But so for his name not to be on that list, it just kind of makes it kind of interesting. Unless he's the guy for the Chargers and everybody in the league knows it, that everybody in the league knows that he's going to get hired by the Chargers, and that's the only team that I've heard he's been connected with. So if that's the only team that you've heard him been connected with, it might be why the Falcons say, you know what, we ain't going to waste our time. So, But yeah, that's the name that kind of stands out to me, that not being on that list of requests. Or, well, you don't have to request him because he's a college football coach. So I'm kind of shocked that they want to at least kind of test the waters, kind of see, especially if you're willing to talk to BB. You know, you're willing to talk to BB, you better be willing to talk to Jim Harbaugh.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there in a second. Yeah, I think Harbaugh, you know, I don't know how it works, because usually, you know, we've been down that college coach road, and so I stopped paying attention to that a long time ago, and I think the Falcons did a long time ago. You know, like we weren't going to go down that road, but I think because he's employed by the Michigan, right? Like whenever these coaches make a jump to the NFL, like, it's always like behind the scenes, they got to kind of work the thing, because they have to do the recruiting and they have to make sure, like, I can't just
act like they're not leaving.
Yeah, you know, so it's just like, and like that happened with, there was like something with Harbaugh when he was supposed to go to Minnesota before they had to pivot to Kevin O'Connor. So like, I think like Harbaugh is going to be one of those names where it's just like, everybody kind of knows it's like an open secret that he's going to try to make the jump to the NFL. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of buzz, you're right, with the Chargers. And so it's just one day it's going to be like, oh, Jim Harbaugh's the coach of the Chargers or whatever, or Jim Harbaugh's the coach of whoever. So like, it may not be one of those things where like you get the breadcrumbs leading up to it, like you do with all these NFL assistants. So that will be something to keep an eye on moving forward. But of course, you know, we're talking about BB. We're talking about you know, a coach. You know, as I said, the 10 names, Harbaugh was 9, Bill Belichick is 10. So let's talk about Bill Belichick. He is officially on the market as he parted ways with the New England Patriots today, and we'll pick Jarvis's brain on what are his thoughts on that, because there's been a lot of buzz over the last 72 hours or so that Bill Belichick is at the top of the Atlanta Falcons wish list. So we'll get into that to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So, guys, it is a new year and it's time to be prepared better than ever. And you don't want to get put down due to an illness, right? It's flu season. I just spent a week trying to recover from COVID right after Christmas. And Jase Medical is helping you get with your preparation so that you don't have to worry about it. So yeah, you always be prepared just in case you get sick. And Jase Medical provides the Jase case. It's a pack of 5 life-saving antibiotics. They treat a long list of bacterial infections. That includes UTIs and respiratory sinus infections, whatever's ailing you on that front. And, you just go to jasemedical.com. You hit up the board certified physician. You tell them, yeah, I need this. They review what you need, and then a licensed pharmacy is going to send you the medications at a fraction of their regular costs. And then on top of that, you're going to get a discount if you go to Jase Medical right now. So it's important to be more prepared now than ever by going to Jase Medical and use our code Locked On, and you'll get $20 off in addition to that discount. And that's Jase Medical. That's JASE medical.com, promo code Locked On, and you'll get $20 off your Jase case. So, guys, before we wrap up today's episode, I do want to say that the plan is, we'll see what's going on. There's always moving parts with ongoing news with the Falcons coaching staff, but the plan is we will have an extra episode this week with an all 22 review. I still haven't sat down and watched the week 18 film, but I plan on doing that in the next 24 hours and giving you a review on that. So if you're still interested in what happened in that game, I don't think anybody is, but I'm a completionist, so that is on the docket. Potentially tomorrow on Locked On Falcons. But Jarvis, let's talk about Bill Belichick. All right, he's officially available now that him and the Patriots, Robert Kraft, have decided to mutually part ways. All right, he's been mentioned by pretty much all the NFL insiders, like the Adam Schefters, Diana Rossini. Basically, they're all saying the Falcons love Bill Belichick. He's number one in their book. And I just ask you, Jarvis, what are your thoughts on all these Bill Belichick rumors?
Oh, man. Well, let me say this. I've kind of been going back and forth, but we actually got a chance to talk about this on Locked On Sports Atlanta today as well. I get it. I get why they're going to talk to him. Totally understand. 24 years at an organization, general manager. Yeah, that's a lot of work, and he's been able to do it. And Yeah. But man, I'm not interested in some old man. I'm not because at the end of the day, because one of the first things that people start talking about is like, oh yeah, he's chasing after Don Shula's coaching record. He has 15 wins to go, and he can get that within the next couple of years. I don't care about a win record. Like I want them to be able to go out there and compete for the division, and then eventually be one of a serious contender for the Super Bowl. That's what I want to see from this team, because they have some talent on this roster. Obviously, there are a couple more tweaks to be made, and we've had conversations about on this show about that. But yeah, man, I'm at the point now where I'm not really interested in a guy like Bill Belichick. And however, I do get why they're talking to him. And to be honest with you, go ahead and talk to him, have a conversation. But if you smell any remnants of this dude wanting to have full control, you better back out immediately. Immediately. You know why? Because look at this roster for the past 5 years. Once Tom Brady left, the dude has not drafted well. The dude has lost that. He's lost whatever he had then. It's gone. It's no longer there. And then you can make a case for, Scott Pioli being a big time player in there. Even Thomas Dimitroff was smelling around there. Like all those guys that were in that building when they were winning all these Super Bowls to the tune of 6 of them. So I think right now, I'm not interested in Bill Belichick, especially if this dude is talking about having full control. But however, I do understand why they are at least having a conversation with him.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at, Jarvis. I'm the same way. I think the idea of Bill Belichick is very intriguing. I think the reality of Bill Belichick, yes,
for Arthur Blank. I
think the reality of Belichick is a little iffier, right? Because I think,
of course,
like you look at him and like we all understand he might be the most brilliant defensive coach ever, right? Like we all recognize that. Like his record speaks for itself. He's still got it. That Patriots defense has been playing at a high level these last couple of years. He's still got that.
Right.
All the other stuff, I don't know what else he's bringing to the table in that regard. And so for me, like I think a lot of people are just like, oh, well, you just get him, the coach defense, and you get him a offensive coordinator, you get him a quarterback, you get somebody else to pick the players. And I'm like, I don't think y'all understand how this business.
All that stuff you just said.
How are you going to get all that stuff? Like,
right?
And you're going to pay Bill Belichick $20 million to basically be a DC? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, man.
See, that's why I'm sitting here saying, like, I don't think the reality, like the idea, you just, you drop Bill Belichick in this place and do that. And,
add a little salt, a little pepper on that thing. Shoot, we good to go.
Yeah,
So,
but like,
I mean, but yeah, let me say this. I think, and then, who's going to be his offense coordinator? Josh McDaniels? Like, he going to bring Josh McDaniels? Yeah, because his track record has been absolutely amazing for the past couple of years. Like, players don't like him. Like, I don't want that, because at the end of the day, there's only so long that guys are going to respect what you've done, and they're going to start asking the question, what have you done for me lately? And what has Bill Belichick done lately? I understand being fascinated with what he's done. And this is the dude that coached that game. That game. Mm-hmm. Y'all know what I'm talking about. 3-8-2, that number. That game. Yeah. So it's just, man.
Wait, 3-8-2 is that Bill Belichick's win percentage the last couple of years? Because that's what it feels like,
Probably so, yeah. Yep, exactly. Yes, I like that, man. That's why I rock with you, Aaron, man. Let's make a joke out of this joke.
Look, this is what I'll say. I think you're right. You got to talk to him, right? You got to talk to him. Like,
no doubt.
You're like,
fair.
Like, you can't talk. We can talk all we want about the Falcons process. You can't, like, Bill Belichick. You got to at least have the conversation. And basically, the way I would the analogy I would use is like, you're at the club, you're at the bar or whatever. You see a lot of pretty ladies. Y'all can judge my Riz game, my whatever you want to call it, based off of this conversation. But like, let me present you the idea. So you're out, and about. You see a lot of pretty ladies, and you see
Yeah.
one particular pretty lady across the way that you're like, ooh, I like her. And so you're in your mind, you're sitting there thinking, oh, like this is just going to hit off. And so you go talk to her. And then let's say you talk to 8 other ladies at that, you get some digits, you whatever.
Of course. Yeah.
And you come to find out, in your head before you started spitting all your game and trying to rizz up all these ladies, like you thought the one girl was, let's say, primo, whatever you want to call her, right? A dime piece, whatever. And in your head, you were like, but then once you had the conversation with her, you're like, some of these other ladies look pretty good, Miss Rahima, Miss Ejiro, Miss Wilksell, whatever. I'm ruining it, but you know what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
you know what I'm saying. But like, then when you got all these digits the next day, and you start texting and doing all this stuff, you're like, yeah, that chick that I thought was the top, had this top spot, ain't really all that. So that to me is kind of what Belichick is. Like, you got to have the conversation, you got to talk to him, right?
Yeah.
But like, then at the end of the day, like you're probably gonna be like, yeah, I'm good, I'm good. So that's how I think it's gonna play out. Again, I could be looking like an idiot a week from now, and they're like announcing Bill Belichick
24 hours from now.
So
the Falcons have hired Bill Belichick.
It is what it is.
Saturday.
But like, I just sit here and I go, like, I think the idea of Bill Belichick is very intriguing. I think the reality of Bill Belichick is just like, all right, man, we're getting a coach that's 83 and 101 in games that Tom Brady hasn't played in. That's basically a 7-win team. We just fired a 7-win coach. Like, what are you really getting here? And again, I'm not even saying that like Brady made Belichick. I'm just saying like you're not getting Tom Brady. So like you got to look at what you're getting. You're getting Bill Belichick, not Tom Brady. And so like the Bill Belichick without Brady is just like, all right. I mean, we'll have the best defense in the league. I don't know what else we're going to bring to the table, but that's kind of how I see it. And
I think you make a great point, because the Falcons got to look at what they're bringing to the table. Do y'all have Justin Herbert? If they had Justin Herbert, I think we're having a different conversation.
True.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's a totally different conversation if the Falcons had Justin Herbert, but they don't. So they have to go get that quarterback, because we know Bill Belichick has a great record of drafting quarterbacks and having success, right? Or going out to get a free agent quarterback and having some success. The guy right up the street, up 85, he played for the Patriots too. Look how that turned out. So I'm good, man. Like, I'm good on the actual hiring of them, but I totally understand if they're having that conversation, man. I think you're spot on. Like, you have to have the conversation, right? If you would like to have him as your coach, or the idea of Bill Belichick being put on that Falcons red and black makes you feel a little different inside, yeah, go ahead and have the conversation, Arthur. I totally get it. But I'm telling you, man, it's already some red flags for me.
Yeah. And look, you can sit there and go, well, we can go get the quarterback, right? We hire Belichick, and then we trade up and get the quarterback. And I'm like, okay, hey, again, the idea sounds great. I love that idea. But if Bill Belichick bails in 2 years, then you're, after he breaks this record, and then I mean, hey, you got a quarterback.
The OC Josh McDaniels to take over. Yeah.
You're doing the thing, speaking of Justin Herbert, like, everybody's like, oh, you just get the quarterback and all your problems go away. It's like, no, that's
you got the wrong coach. It don't matter.
You got one problem solved because you got the quarterback, and then you got to still deal with these other problems. Right? Yes, talk to the Jaguars fans. How are they feeling about, like, hey, we all think Trevor Lawrence
they had the guy,
is a baller, but like, they got other issues going on. Like, you just solve one problem when you get the quarterback. So like, that to me is like one of those things where, like, yeah, the idea sounds great. It sounds great.
Amazing.
Like, oh, Bill Belichick, and then we get Jaden Daniels, or we get Caleb Williams, or whoever we get, and it's like, oh man, we just marry those guys together, and it's gonna be great. And then 3 years from now, you're like, we're back in the coaching side. Now we got to find somebody who's going to be able to make sure that Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams develops and all. It's like, do that now. Like, start that now. Don't wait till 2026 or whatever to do that. Do that now. That's basically what I'm saying, man.
Stop trying to get a quick fix, man. Stop trying to get a quick fix. Man.
That's how we feel about it. we'll see how I feel about the Week 18 matchup potentially tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be continue to pick Jarvis's brain on this coaching search, and stay tuned to some draft content later in the week or later in the month when it gets to the Senior Bowl and all that stuff. But Jarvis, let the people know whether they agree with you or disagree with it, where they can hit you up, and what type of content you have coming their way.
Oh man, just let y'all know that you can always hit me up on X at JarvisD90, or you can hit me up on the Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube channel. Make sure you guys come check us out. I promise you, Aaron is there, so you don't have to worry about missing out on. I understand the love and affection that you all have for him. So he appears on that show as well, on the Atlanta Football Party every Monday. So go check that out, and make sure, if you haven't done so, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, as always, you all know that we're free and available wherever you download your podcast.
There you guys have it. Check out Locked On NFL Kickoff Live tomorrow. Get you guys geared up for the weekend's action as well. That's going to do it for us here. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Just relax. Falcons are going to do their thing, and then in 2 weeks from now we'll just wait, and then we'll complain about who they wind up hiring. That's just the way it goes. But enjoy these 2 weeks off of complaining and watch some good football, and then we'll complain about the Atlanta Falcons. So that's what we're going to do, guys. Hope you have a great weekend. Till then, it's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.